cultivate a capacity for kindness. So, close your eyes. Take a few moments to breathe in and breathe out. But I would say on a deeper level, it's more like when we say work on yourself, that involves all kinds of like things about moving your life forward. And they struggle with
motivation in these things.
It's because when I don't think I'm worth it, I'm not worth fixing.
Alrighty, chat. Welcome to another Healthy Gamer GG stream. Just a reminder that although I'm a psychiatrist, nothing we discuss on stream today is intended to be taken as medical advice. Everything is for educational and entertainment purposes only. So if y'all have a medical concern or question, please go see a licensed professional.
Not that one, though.
Yes. So welcome, everybody. Happy Friday. So we have some cool stuff lined up for y'all today. We're going to do things that are a little bit different. So today we're going to be giving y'all a quick stakeholder update about HG. So I don't quite know what that means, but Kruti does. And so we're going to be talking to y'all about some of the stuff that we've been doing here. I think generally speaking, people appreciate it when we give y'all updates about stuff. So we're going to be doing that. Next thing is that we're going to be doing a performance review. So we're going to show you all the actual template that we use. And I think we're going to make it a little bit interactive. So we have chat opened up. And so, you know, as we go through the different things, y'all are welcome to weigh in on, you know, whether I get a 1 to a 6 and whatever comments y'all have. This is a great chance for feedback. So we're going to actually go through like a performance review. Like, so these are the, like I said, the documents we use internally. And then what we're going to do towards the end, or I guess maybe we wanted to leave a lot of time for this, is a lot of people have questions about performance reviews. Hey, what should I do in a performance review? We're going to be looking at a couple of cases, things that we pull from Reddit. And then if you all have questions about performance reviews and stuff in general, how do I do X? How do I do Y? How do I do Z? We can go through that. So Kruti has done a ton of performance reviews as the reviewer, and I'm sure she's had a fair number of performance reviews as an employee. I too have done both. So in the medical system and residency, we get performance reviews basically on every rotation. So that's a big part of like clinical rotations, is you basically get a performance review. And then once you become a resident, you start reviewing medical students, and you get reviewed by senior residents and attendings. And then once you become an attending, you review everyone downstream, and then you get reviewed by people upstream. And then also in my capacity here at HG, once in a blue moon, I'll do a performance review. So yeah, so I think we can get started. Kruti, did you want to start with you want to say hi?
Hi, my name is Kruti Kanogia. I am Mrs. K, and I run the Healthy Gamer organization, which includes Healthy Gamer content coaching community, but also the HG Institute and the Healthy Gamer Foundation. So we have a really incredible team here, and performance is just kind of a part of life in the workspace, and we try to keep ours as human as possible. But a lot of you guys work at maybe less human places. So what we're trying to do today is, one, show you a little bit about what we've been up to. Two, talk a little bit through a performance review in like a real world setting. And then three, go through some everyday struggles and challenges that we see on the career side from our community, and just kind of help you guys get good at work.
Okay, so do you want to do the stakeholder stuff first, or do you want to do the let's do stakeholder stuff first?
Sure.
Okay, so let me go ahead and
So the whole kind of premise of Healthy Gamer is you guys are the board or the investors or the stakeholders, really. We're in a very privileged position, I would say, of most mental health companies have to take money from venture capital, private equity, personal capital, but essentially those mental health companies are really there to make money for their stakeholders. And we're lucky enough to basically be able to say, hey, we're not here to like make buckets of money. We're here to spread as much impact as we can. The AOE part is so core to every decision we make, everything that we build. So we just thought we would close the loop and kind of show you how and why we're doing the things that we do. Any questions, let us know. We've got both Twitch and YouTube chats over here, and this is really to give you guys information that you want about what we're doing.
That's weird. That worked pretty well for a second. Hold on.
No worries.
Do this there.
There we go.
Keyboard shortcuts, no like. Okay. Yeah.
And we did, this is also the reward for the Make It community event from May. And May is always buckets of fun every year. So sorry it took us so long to get to this. We took a little break after May. May is like our Christmas. So June, July is when the team usually takes a little bit of a break.
Oh God. Someone is mentioning Gooncoin.
All right.
All right, that'll come up.
The first thing that we wanted to the first thing that we wanted to do is make sure you guys knew about this. So about 2 years ago, the Board of Medicine, the Board of Registration in Medicine of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts started an investigation into Alec as a physician, which then expanded to everything that we do at Healthy Gamer. And we wanted to kind of update you on where everything landed. So they went through a bunch of stuff. It's all on public record, or most of it is. A lot of the back and forth is off record, but we don't have to get into that. And we wanted to kind of tell you guys, make sure you understand that it happened, that it's concluded, that the findings are really twofold. So publicly, Aulic's license technically has been reprimanded. This is a disciplinary action, which means that, like, in no uncertain terms, this was something that shouldn't have happened. And basically what it's saying is the thing that shouldn't have happened is the undermining of the public's confidence in the profession of psychiatry. So we get it, we accept it, and I think the thing that we've really taken to heart is there are so many improvements we can make in the way that we do content that we started making years before this complaint even came to light. So in the sense that, yes, there was something that shouldn't have happened, that we did something wrong, we accept it, take responsibility. We've made, I think, all the changes that we can make from a process point of view, from like a oversight point of view. Yeah, just all the substantial changes a person can make, we've made.
So just to jump in, so
Yeah.
I think you know, I see there's a lot of positive comments in chat. You know, one person, Turtlebite, is saying, I found you guys so much more helpful than actual psychiatrists or therapists. Why is this? So I think like Ruthie said, the reprimand is for undermining the public's faith in the profession, which I think is fair. So the reprimand refers to 6 streams that we did between 2019 and 2020. And I think that some of those streams can look bad. And I think that the other thing to keep in mind is that, you know, some of the actions that we take, some people will be happy with and some people will be unhappy with. I think that on the whole, the number of positive responses, like just like this comment today that we've gotten, far outweigh. I think we've helped far more people than have lost faith in psychiatry because of what we do, which is what the reprimand is for. We make psychiatrists look bad. So I think on balance, like what we're doing, I think is helping people. And I think we see this, right? So the scope of the board is not necessarily to look at all of the positive, but just to focus on a particular set of things.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, that like they're not going to be handing out blue ribbons. So
Yeah.
for one instance where something did not look good, that's fair game to basically call it out and say, nope, can't do that. One thing that is equally important is when it comes to the private interactions with Reckful, who, you know, was kind of near and dear to everything Healthy Gamer, that all of the private interactions there did follow the standard referral guidelines. And the reason that you guys are just hearing about this now is because this is all private. This is all closed door investigation, and there's just, it's going through private communications, and there's just, we just want to kind of take everybody's privacy seriously. So unfortunately, we have had to kind of like let our names be dragged through the mud a little bit, but it kind of is what it is. And I think we're all kind of ready to just, did you want to say something before I say we're going to look?
No, I mean, I think that the main thing to understand is that, so, you know, one of the things that we value a lot is privacy. And so as a result of that, you know, we don't talk about people, we talk to people, and we try not to talk about people like publicly in general. And so another thing to understand about the board complaint is that they went through everything, right? So, and they did not find any evidence of malpractice or negligence or anything like that. So, and I know that that may upset people, but basically the board found, and you guys can read this yourself, that I acted within standard referral guidelines, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I know it's kind of weird that we're bringing this up, but I think if y'all hadn't heard about this, I think it's important to know. We take this kind of stuff super seriously. I think the board process was ultimately incredibly fair. And the good news is that there are no restrictions on my license, thankfully, no probation or anything like that. And then also like no changes to the work that we do at Healthy Gamer, which was actually the most important thing. So the board did not recommend that we stop doing anything, change doing anything like that. So the good news is that after this whole process, we're here. It seems like we're here to stay, at least for now. And I also want to emphasize that this is how things work, right? We have these institutions, we have these systems of oversight to make sure that everything is okay. So overall, I think it's like a healthy part of the process, and this is why these things like medical boards exist.
Yeah. So with that said, I think we have kind of full confidence moving forward that our processes look good, our oversight looks good, and our content, most of all, is helping you guys. I see you guys in chat saying that you've gotten help because of this, or that you've been working with a coach because of this, and you've made improvements. So we're just kind of here to wish you guys well and keep building on top of everything that we've done. All right, let's move to the next.
Yeah.
So, most mental health things happen not on open platforms like Twitch and YouTube, Discord, etc. So the combination of content plus coaching plus community is new for mental health on open platforms. So that's why we want to be super transparent on what we're building, how we're building it, and why. Because ultimately, we're building this for you guys. And if you guys don't like it, if you don't like the foundation of it, if you have questions about it, then we want to know. And we want to kind of do it better so that way it actually helps you. All right, cool. Next. So I don't know if you guys are aware, but one thing that kind of was part of this process of improvement was creating a scientific advisory board. We realized pretty quickly, like Healthy Gamer was never supposed to work, right? Like Healthy Gamer was Alok streaming in between like patients, basically. When he was doing a private practice and somebody would cancel, he would pop on Twitch, or if he would have an open afternoon, he would pop on Twitch. It was infrequent and it was kind of extemporaneous. And then as that started picking up, especially post-pandemic, we realized, hey, we need a little bit more advice on how to do this, because he's a psychiatrist, but are there psychologists that can add their perspective? Are there coaches that can add their perspective? What do other psychiatrists think about this? So we work with a really great group. I'm going to sing their praises for just a second, but Dr. Comrade, who some of you guys might have met, he is a pretty well-known ethicist with the American Psychiatric Association. So he lends a lot of kind of ethical perspectives and kind of more of like a conservative psychiatrist point of view. Dr. Michael Shu is another kind of MGH. Was he MGH?
Brigham.
He was Brigham. So he came out of the Harvard systems as well. He is he's a great guy, because he will go with Alok from the APA to the Crunchyroll office. And we will have to track them both down, because he's kind of one of us in a lot of ways, and he's also heavier on the research side. So he brings a great research perspective, a community perspective, and a psych perspective. Dr. Bailey is awesome. She comes out of children's mental health. So she was at Nationwide Children's in Cleveland. So that adolescent perspective as I think she's a PhD psychologist. She might be a PsyD. I get those kind of mixed up sometimes. But as like, a doctoral level psychologist, she brings a lot of integrity. She also works with very, like, the most serious cases. So the dark, heavy stuff, she's a great point of view there. Dr. Y played competitive WoW actually with Reckful. So again, she's like one of us. She started working with us, doing a lot of case review with our coaches. So she supported Healthy Gamer coaches to make sure that coaches were in scope, that they, had good support for like, okay, if somebody is coming in and they have a lot of trauma, make sure that the coach can handle what a coach is supposed to handle, but never go out of scope. Dr. Thorderson is great. She's a clinical psychologist with a background in you're gonna have to help me with the terminology here. She runs an inpatient. No,
Nope.
she
So
runs
she runs an IOP, which is
IOP.
funny because someone just posted, I think, on our subreddit or something about like IOPs and talking about IOPs. So she's great at program development. I think she's really good at working with like teenagers who have. So she runs an IOP, which is an intensive outpatient program. So she works with like high acuity teenagers to young adults. Um, and so intensive outpatient. So when we normally think about there's like inpatient treatment, right, where you're hospitalized and you're spending the night at the hospital. And then there's outpatient treatment, which is usually like one appointment a week for about an hour. And then there's a really good step between those two things, which are these things are not super popular because they're resource intense, but something called an intensive outpatient program. So my experience with IOPs is usually around addictions. So when someone gets discharged from, a hospital after getting detoxed, if they have 1 hour of therapy a week, that may not be enough to help them stay sober. So IOPs can be like half-day programs, like 3 days a week, or they can be like, 3 hours, 3 days a week, or they can be like 3 to 4 hours, 5 days a week. There are different structures to it. So it's intensive outpatient. So you don't have to stay at the hospital. You're not like locked up or anything like that. And at the same time, you are getting a lot of like kind of, more intense psychiatric care and support.
She also brings a perspective from a lived experience, as kind of self-disclosing that she is neurodivergent. So we love that as well, to make sure that we can really effectively shape our solutions to be, if not explicitly supportive, then at least accommodating for neurodivergent needs. And then Coach Emmy Marie, she is also a creator, and she is a trauma-informed coach. So again, when we're talking about processes and protocols around the coaching program, this group between an ethical or an ethicist, a psychiatrist, somebody that understands youth mental health, somebody that understands gaming culture, somebody that understands intensive situations, somebody that understands coaching. We love working with this group. Just wanted you to know that there are bones to what we do that isn't just like Olive and I harebrained schemes. And our goal is really to start connecting the healthy gamer community with more of the best and brightest in mental health. I think as we kind of keep growing, we want to bring more diverse perspectives and diverse kind of takes. So that way, if something that we're saying isn't quite matching with what you guys are seeking, we can at least connect you guys with something that will. Yeah, Dr. Matu, I thought nailed it. We have some more kind of fun people coming your way.
That's hilarious. Dr. Matu is in chat right now.
Hey.
And he's saying hello. And I just absolutely loved. We did a stream earlier this week about anxiety, and Dr. Matu's perspective is so amazing. Having lived through stuff like selective mutism and working through his own social anxiety, and then like he's an expert in he's an expert in anxiety. So he's done a ton of clinical practice and also makes content about it. So he's an excellent educator. He's an excellent educator, an excellent clinician, and what seems to be a great human being. But I'd have to hang out with him a little bit more to be able to really say that.
Looking forward to all of it. Thanks
and
for
then
stopping by, Dr. Matu.
He was also wearing a Street Fighter TMNT shirt, so we don't know exactly how good he is at games anymore. But it was and is one of us. Oh, today's something related to DS9. DS9 is great. Okay.
All right, this was a big lift, and shout out to Jake, our research manager here at Healthy Gamer. We do a lot of content, as you guys know, and every piece of content basically goes through this process of, hey, somebody in chat or somebody commented or somebody sent an email asking about this. And then from that, our team will say, oh, what a great question. We should make a video about this. And then what we'll do is say, all right, let's find the underlying science here. So Alec will do a research request. Jake will pull the studies. Alec will sit down with them, kind of start bulleting it out. He'll work with the content team to kind of figure out a script. He'll record. And unfortunately, throughout this process, the research has never made it into the links in the description or into bibliography or anything.
Yeah, so it's crazy like how some of the things that seem the simplest and honestly are simple and are not that hard are just like hard to implement sometimes. I think it's like you guys have been wanting citations for a long time. We should have been doing citations. We do a whole lot of research on the back end. So a stopgap that we have is we have a citations page where it's topic based. So another thing that changes a little bit with the way that I do videos is that I don't like, it's not like an academic like bibliography, right? So it's not like every sentence I say every sentence that I say has a citation associated with it. So as I read more and more and more, it kind of like I draw on studies that I may not have like looked at specifically for that particular lecture. So I think we're still shooting to do both. And a lot of people have brought up citations. It's absolutely on our radar. We'll fix citations once Dota 2 fixes the Midas bug. And once that gets taken care of, if a multi-billion-dollar company doesn't
Click on
if a multi-billion-dollar company can't fix a Midas bug, give us some time for dealing with the citations, okay? And let me just pull that up. Hold on one second if you want to see it. So we hope to actually update both. So what we have here, if y'all want to take a look, is we have, so here are our citations for anxiety. So this looks like it's been updated recently. Here's our citations for depression, ADHD, meditation, trauma, post-traumatic growth, and then we also have, like, we're starting to implement these where, so this normally would belong like in our, like various videos, but the challenge is that like when we talk, our videos are a little bit multidisciplinary. And so what that means is that, for example, like in the gooning video, which we talked about recently, there's not like a bibliography specifically for gooning, but we'll talk about coping mechanisms. We'll talk about attachment styles. We'll talk about neuroscience. So usually when we ask people, why do y'all want citations? It's because, okay, I want to read more about a particular topic. So we're working on including them in the video descriptions, but then there's a lot of stuff that is like, we may not have a video about time blindness. It'll be like a piece of a video, but a lot of times people are like, oh, I want to learn more about that. So, like this, for example, is a fantastic paper. Time perception in adult ADHD, just the way that the ADHD brain perceives time is different. So this is not necessarily related to ADHD. Psychopathy in women, we have a video coming out soon. Asking for help, dark side of empathy, male mental health, male suicide, neuroscience of addiction recovery, neuroscience of acceptance, cognitive bias and depression, habit formation, male social phobia, autism in women, dopamine resistance, addiction in women, acceptance, sex addiction, ADHD in women, neuroscience of willpower, food cravings, therapy for ADHD, sleep, CPTSD, dissociation, jealousy, anhedonia, cultivating interest, right? So this is another thing that I don't know if this is like, so we'll find a lot of cool papers that are a little bit more topical as opposed to in a particular video. Marijuana avoidance, bipolar 2, gentle parenting. This one is something we're working on.
Yep, missing a P.
Huh?
Missing a P. Go. Paternal.
Oh, paternal. Okay. Need for social interaction, right? So this is like some of the stuff that went into our... so the other thing is sometimes we'll do research before we do a live stream. So on a live stream, right, we may not have a clear bibliography because it'll be like someone will ask a question and then I'll answer it. This is a really fascinating segment of research. Brain rot, ADHD and obesity, stalking, neuroscience of satiety. This is a video that never actually saw the light of day, but that also happens quite a bit. dreams and PTSD, loss aversion, cognitive barriers to exercise. So we hope to update this. This just got a big update. And you know, there's a ton of papers here.
Whew. Okay, so the main takeaway there is the videos all build on each other. So the video doesn't have a clear, I'm talking about this paper, but the Healthy Gamer body of knowledge includes those citations as well as like tons of books that are all around this office. So
Link is right here, explore.healthygamer.gg/citations. Okay. What is it? You want to talk about this?
sure. Your guide got a makeover. Our guide, the guide, got a makeover. So, for those of you that have been with us for a little while, you probably remember, I think, was it 2021 or 2022? 21, I think, where
21.
we decided basically that there's so much content out there from Healthy Gamer that now it's hard. And here we are 3 years later. So it's even harder to know where to start and how to kind of go a little bit more methodically. So essentially, All Oak said, let's put everything into like a step-by-step guide to mental health. So building on all of this research, right? Like, what is the first thing you need to know about anxiety? What is the first thing you need to know about depression? What is the second thing, the third thing? So the guides have gone through a huge makeover, both just the UI and like the fundamental structure. So it used to be kind of skill tree based, where it was about the different kind of paths that you go down. And now it's much more about a learning path that can kind of draw from the different modules altogether. It's kind of hard to describe, so maybe
I would
go to
actually-
the next slide.
I would actually say that it's more skill tree based now.
It's more clearly skill tree based
So-
now. So you can see like there's different learning paths where if you wanted to go down, this is from the meditation module as an example. So there's do you want to take them through this?
Yeah, so I'll give y'all, okay. So here's what I want to do. Okay. So in video games, we have these things like skill trees. So you can look at your skill tree. They're all the domains of mastery, right? So it's like, I'm going to level up my defensive tree. I'm going to level up my dodging tree. I'm going to level up fire magic. I'm going to level up dual wielding daggers. I'm going to level up conversation skills. I'm going to level up passives. I'm going to give myself plus 50 HP, plus a 10% mana regen. So if you look at these video games, right, what they do a really good job of saying, okay, if you want to make the perfect character, here are all of the things that you need to invest in. And you can max out your skill tree, right? So in some games, they give us a limited number of points, so you have to choose to specialize. But if you look at real life, every day you exist on this planet, you can gain XP and level something up. So remember that the mind doesn't wear out. We don't max out. It's not like our brain fills up at some point and we can no longer learn new things. What causes us to forget is not overwriting old information. What causes us to forget is not using something. So if I like learn Spanish and then I don't use it for 10 years, it's not like Spanish gets replaced by another language. It gets replaced through a lack of use. So one of the key things to understand about the human body and the human mind is that they never wear out, they rust. So then I thought to myself, okay, I've been like, I saw my first patient somewhere around 2010 when I started med school. It's been 14 years since I saw my first patient. And as I've worked with people who are addicted to stuff, including pornography, substances, as I've worked with people who like lack happiness in life, are professionally successful but don't know how to date, are professionally successful, have a family but feel trapped at the age of 45 and are going through a midlife crisis. What I started to do is think about, okay, what is the skill tree for life? Like what do I think, what have I observed that human beings need? And then what we tried to do is build it. So now, like, it started out kind of like the FF10 sphere grid, if you're all are familiar with that. But then as we've grown, like the sphere grid is getting way too far away from FF10 and way too close to PoE. And the Path of Exile skill tree is just ridiculous. Like, it's just not, you have to spend, there's a whole separate part of a skill tree, which is understanding the Path of Exile skill tree, which you have to invest in. So now what we've tried to do is really break it down to where, like, okay, if you like want to learn about yourself and like what are the core skills you need to understand, like this is how we want to bake this out for y'all. So things like, okay, you know, people will ask, I saw a question on the meditation subreddit today. What is my mind? If I'm not my thoughts, then what am I? So that's like a core understanding of like, once you understand you're not your thoughts, it helps a lot, whether you're hallucinating or you have something like black and white thinking with like borderline personality disorder. How does trauma affect us? How does the mind gain knowledge? What are the roots of suffering? Why is it that money doesn't buy happiness? So money buys security. Security removes some of the sources of unhappiness, absolutely. But where does unhappiness come from? So how can we take action without fearing the potential outcome, right? So how do we like get over things like analysis paralysis, stuff like that? So we've tried to develop this into like basically like skill-based things that if you want to learn about yourself, go through this stuff. The other thing is that these are clinically a little bit focused, but there's a lot of stuff in trauma about how your identity is formed, like where self-esteem comes from. So it's not just clinical. So ADHD has a lot of stuff about time management and planning your day and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think it's really easy to get overwhelmed with like where to start. There's so many videos. Do I have to do all of this? So the learning paths are really kind of goal oriented. Where are you? Where do you want to be? What do you need to learn in the way? And it'll take you through a more discrete learning path throughout all of the content. Will you go to the next slide, please? Sure. Okay. So that's the guide. It's really exciting. And I see some of you saying like you bought it a while ago and it was so overwhelming. You kind of did 1% and clicked off. I would love for you to kind of refresh and see if this experience is a little bit stronger for you. And also it's like more mobile friendly, or you can Chromecast it. So all of that feature and functionality is there. Let's see. Our design team put together some really cute little characters, and what we're trying to communicate here is that a lot of these resources are made with a ton of love from the full Healthy Gamer team. So Healthy Gamer has a product team, research, design, development, marketing, community, and then of course like the back of house, like finance, HR, all of that good stuff. So it's kind of like a full rounded operation now. And so you've got, with the oversight of the advisory board, a really great team building tons of stuff for you guys. So some of it's for fun, some of it's for connection, some of it's for growth, some of it is to like tailor a mental health learning experience, some of it is more action oriented. So if you guys have any ideas for these characters, we really want to keep making more of these and just kind of make it all a little bit more fun.
Yeah, so I just want to...
You hate the couch bird. I am the couch bird. That bird is me.
Someone saying, Caden saying that loved the guide after being in therapy for over 15 years. This helps my gifted kid brain process and fill in a lot of the holes and pitfalls. So that's honestly the reason we started this. Right. So what I was like, I was sitting in my office and I was thinking that what I would love is if my patients could, there's like a lot of DIY stuff that I don't need to teach them in my office, right? They're like books they can read. But the problem is that like those resources just weren't what I wanted for my patients to go through. So like if they could understand, you know, what is the nature of like dopamine resistance and tolerance? What is the nature of pornography addiction? Like there's a lot of stuff. This generation, if you look at this digital generation, we are the most DIY oriented generation. We're also the most informed generation. So there are like certain advantages that we don't take advantage, we really don't like capitalize on in the field of medicine, which is that patients are like the best advocates for themselves. Like the number of doctors that get pissed off when a patient comes in and says, oh, like I was reading about this on the internet, this is what I think I have. I've heard so many horror stories of patients being right and doctors being wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like, we take it as a personal affront if you like did some research on your own and learned about your health. Now, there's a lot of challenges to that, right? Because what research on the internet means oftentimes is this is what the content algorithm showed me. And that can be a lot of misinformation, a lot of distorted information. So I think there's a reasonable amount of frustration that comes with being a medical professional when everyone is like, I read WebMD and it says that I have glioblastoma multiforme. And it's like, that's exceedingly unlikely. And so there's a balance there. And so our goal, and I think a lot of like medical content creators, like this is our goal. I've talked and worked with a lot of them. I definitely got this vibe from Dr. Matu is like, we want to equip y'all with what we hope are high quality resources to learn about your mind and your health. And thankfully we have a lot of awesome people here on the team who help us do that.
Wait, okay, so naming the characters, I love Ravioli for the bird. Somebody called him Midbird, which I think is also kind of a fun name. I love the frog wizard. I think we can christen the bird Ravioli.
Okay, so.
Whiz for the frog. I think that's cute too. Okie doke. So one thing that we constantly look at that we wanted to kind of share with you guys is we've gone through the 15th cohort of coaches is coming up on the Healthy Gamer coaching platform. And we're constantly looking to see how we can improve the coaching experience. Coaching is tricky because it's unregulated, and there's three kind of concerns around coaching. One is it's unregulated, so anyone can say they're any kind of coach. The second is the scope of coaching and really making sure that coaches have good clarity of scope, that they're not pretending to be therapists, they're not going out of their lane. And the third, for us, because our blend is peer coaching, recovery coaching, and mental health coaching kind of mash into one program. So we're really looking at efficacy. Like, are people actually getting better? So we have a couple of studies that we run to kind of measure all of this stuff. And the best part of this is our beta cohort launched with a 4.5 out of 5. Oops, sorry. I don't know if I just blew somebody's ears out. So our beta cohort, which was launched, I think, February 2020, so right before the pandemic, started off with a good kind of like 90% score, 4.5 out of 5. Good, but not kind of where we want to be because we're always shooting for the A+. So we made some improvements, and really happy to say that we've kind of got to 4.89 after 14 rounds of coaches. So cohort 15 is up on the platform now. We have been sold out for 3.5 years of coaching spots. So wait.
No,
almost 4 years.
No, we haven't been sold out. No. So coaching has been at 95+% capacity since like October of 2022.
Okay, so for 2 years.
Yeah.
But there's a ton of new spots on the platform. If you're interested, please check it out. And just, we wanted to kind of show that there are continual improvements with every cohort of coaches.
So I think people are asking, what does this score mean? So this is a subjective score. This is the post-session feedback score. So after you have a coaching session with your coach, people will fill out basically like a star rating with additional information. But basically this is like how good was your session today is I think what this is a PSF rating. And so
Well, it's asking a couple of explicit questions. So this is self-reported from the client. Remember, we were just talking about how there's not a lot of accountability. Like you kind of go in, start working with someone, whether or not it's working for you kind of doesn't matter sometimes. For us, it really, really matters. So we ask every client a couple of questions to make sure that their experience is good. So we ask, this program meets my needs. I am optimistic coaching will help me achieve my goals. Being in this session gave me a better understanding of my behaviors, thoughts, and emotions. I am happy with this coaching session. So we've adapted some of those questions a little bit as we've moved along to be a little bit clearer. But essentially what we're looking for is, are you having a good experience? Are you optimistic? And like, is coaching going to meet your needs, or do you need something more like therapy or medication, things like that? So if coaching isn't going to meet your needs, we do not want to mislead anyone that you're going to get clinical level care with Healthy Gamer coaching. That's not what it's for. Coaching is really there to kind of move you from present to forward, whereas therapy is really, it tends to be, this isn't always the case, but therapy is a lot of times looking at your past and kind of why you are where you are in the present. That's not what we're trying to do with coaching. It's very forward-looking, goals-oriented. Another way to think about it is a lot of times our circumstances are what is holding us back as opposed to a mental illness. So if changing your circumstances is what is going to make that mental health improvement for you, that's where coaching can kind of play a role.
Yeah, so when I it was interesting when I was in residency. When I got some really interesting feedback from one of my supervisors that I can tell you're doing really good work, but it isn't therapy. And I was kind of confused by this because I was drawing a lot on like principles of like meditation and Eastern philosophy. And so this is while I was training, there's nothing wrong with this. So then, we talked to my program about it. We found a supervisor who is more familiar with that stuff. Funnily enough, I talked to them this morning just to catch up. And so I think one of the things that we're discovering is if you look at one of the places I trained, which is McLean Hospital. So it's one of the arguably best psychiatric hospitals in the country. They have a coaching institute. And so when I was there, the chief of psychiatry was like, based on what I'm hearing about the work that you do, you should definitely check out our coaching institute. So I went to a coaching conference back in 2017 or 2018 and was blown away by the field. And the coaching institute was actually one of the co-founders is a psychologist who focuses on this emerging field of psychology called positive psychology. So if you look at like what we understand from a psychological perspective, we have the focus on pathology, right? There's something broken in you in some way. Something is wounded, hurt, needs to be healed, call it whatever you want. And then there's the focus on positive psychology and accomplishment. The challenge is that if you look at the training requirements of people like therapists and psychiatrists, the number of lectures I get on helping someone find happiness or build a healthy relationship is far outweighed by here's how borderline personality disorder screws up your relationships. Here's how bipolar disorder screws up your relationships. Here's how addiction screws up your relationships. And thankfully, there are a lot of great therapists out there who I think a lot of us realize we can't just focus on pathology. We have to build out like solid lives with our patients. The challenge is that the formal training we receive is very rarely in that direction. It's just pathology focused, and that's also because we have all this like insurance infrastructure and things like that. But and so I think there's a reason why coaching is catching on. And we built this because we felt like we believe in the peer support model. There are some aspects of the coaching model that are super solid. The peer support model is very evidence-based. And so, we're learning this stuff and we're getting better at it, and we built it to help y'all. Okay, so you want to talk about this? Or you want me to talk about this?
I wanted to take one question from chat about the coach match. So the match is super important, and it's important to Healthy Gamer that you feel good about the coach that you're working with. So if for whatever reason that's not the case, oh, this coach doesn't seem to understand me, versus I'd rather work with a female coach, versus I'd rather work with a coach closer to my age. All of that stuff is handled through customer service, and we try to make it as painless as possible to make a switch. All right, on to Healthy Gamer memberships. I know less about memberships than you do, but I know I know it's been a lot of fun. And the community there is about 5,000 plus members, I think around 5,300 members. And those are exclusive live streams that are picked by members for what you want to talk about that month. And then all it goes through the same kind of research process of, hey, I want to talk about this. Can you give me enough papers? Prepares the lecture, etc.
Yeah, so just a quick so there were a couple of challenges that we faced with making content. So one of the things that I've learned is that
I see a ton of members in chat. Hello.
is that not all content works well across all platforms. So I'll give you all just a simple example of this. So if we look at let's say I want to do a lecture. So if I do a lecture, the first lecture that I do on a live streaming platform will be fine. The problem is each subsequent lecture that I do, like the number of people who have watched all the previous stuff goes down like exponentially, right? So maybe half as many people will watch lecture 2 as lecture 1. Half as many people will stick around for lecture 3. And so it decays pretty quickly. And so what that means is that as we go deeper, as we go more advanced, fewer and fewer and fewer people are following along. There are absolutely chunks of our community that are wanting more advanced topics, wanting deeper perspectives on things. And then what we also found is that the more detailed we go, the more esoteric spirituality that we cover, let's say, like the YouTube performance also goes down. So, if we live stream it, like we leave a lot of people behind. On the YouTube side, some of these things people are just less interested in, right? So if you look at like YouTube as a platform, people tend to be interested in some amount of depth, or at least our community is, because we're not going to make like, our focus is not on optimizing like a 60-second short form piece of content about 5 tips to overcome pornography addiction.
You don't have to clickbait the members.
Yeah, well, so we, it's really for those of y'all that really want deeper stuff that's a little bit more applicable, for people who are also willing to put in the work. Because it's not like I'm gonna sit here and Dr. K is gonna entertain me into understanding, how to stuff about how gooning works. Like I love doing that kind of content, but there's just to give you all an example, like we did one lecture. So the other big thing about memberships is that it's community driven. So every month we vote on topics and then the members decide what we do. And that's been super cool because we did a deep dive into emotions, which we do on the main channel as well. And then people were like, okay, we did emotions 101, let's do emotions 201. And now what people did is they liked that so much that we're probably going to do a deep dive next month, or we are going to do a deep dive into lust and shame. So we're going to let's have a 2-hour lecture about understanding lust from a neuroscience, psychological, and spiritual perspective. And the shame one is also going to be like pretty great. So
Can I tell you something funny? So Alk has this book on shame, and he calls it his shame book. And he leaves it, he's like putting the kids to bed, right? And he takes his shame book up to the girls' bedrooms. And he's like, have you seen my shame book? And then our daughters will come back and be like, here, Daddy, here's your shame book. It's great.
Oh.
Lots of memes in the Kanoja house.
Okay. All right.
Okie doke. So, and our memberships are managed by our memberships coordinator. So there's a weekly quest, but it's a lot like advanced learning and a lot more doing as well. And we know that we love helping the community do more. So this right here is a result of the Make It challenge. This plus the performance review that we're about to do. So they gamified practical, creative, collaborative tasks across 4 weekly themes. People earned points and unlocked rewards. But it was really about kind of doing things. And the adulting challenge coming up here on Monday, they're going to do 30 days of practical objectives to really work on your life skills. So at the end of all of it, you'll come out with an HG certified adult, and you'll actually get a certificate and a badge. So if you feel like adulting is hard or adulting sucks, we've been there, we've done that, we agree. And we're going to try to make it a little bit more fun coming up in September. If you're interested, please check it out.
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, wow. I'm just reading the message that the 2-day workshop, the trauma workshop, helped somebody get clean, which is amazing. Congratulations. Good for you. All right. So I wanted to tell you guys kind of quickly about HGI. This is the Institute. So it's a little bit separate from Healthy Gamer. And this is where we help clinicians and coaches kind of learn from our body of work that you guys have seen is pretty extensive. So the first thing that we have done is created approved continuing education units. So if you're a therapist and you want to learn more about technology addiction or the effect of all these screens on mental health, and you want to be able to more effectively work with young people, all of that is up and ready to go on the HD Institute. The next phase for the Institute is to get the Healthy Gamer coaching curriculum accredited by it's called the NBHWC. It's National Board for Health and Wellness Coaching. So if you're a health coach, this is kind of like a more kind of gold standard. So we're working towards getting all Healthy Gamer coaching kind of at least to that level. I think in some ways it's one of those where it's like, but do they know about AIDS? We don't talk about AIDS very much. It's kind of outdated, but it's part of a comprehensive curriculum. So we're kind of adding those kinds of things that you kind of have to check the boxes on to have these accreditations. And then there's also the Coaches League, which is a professional association for coaches, because if you're in mental health, it can be a very lonely job, kind of holding a lot of weight from the people you're supporting. So we wanted coaches to be able to have some camaraderie, have kind of each other, have like a professional association, but like make it fun. So the Coaches League is kind of our team's attempt to do that.
Okay.
So if you're in mental health, check it out.
Should we move on to the performance review?
Let's do it. Can I take a quick break?
Yeah, you can take a quick break. I'll switch our.
Can I just answer questions in chat for a little bit?
Yes, I will change the. So, thanks for sticking around, y'all. We're gonna change the overlays here in just a second. So let's do this. Let's do this. Happy Friday, everybody. Yeah, so people are asking, like, what is a CE? So one of the things that, like, I noticed is that there's a lot of great scientific information out there. There's even a lot of great clinical information out there. But the time lag between having great information out there and having clinicians who know how to utilize that information is like pretty large, right? So what normally happens, so I asked this question to Dr. Matu. He gave me a really optimistic answer. He was like, yeah, it takes about 5 years. I was thinking it takes like 20 to 30. So when I was kind of thinking about it, okay, we like one research study takes like, let's say 3 to 4 years, 3 to 5 years usually. You need to get like a consensus of research. So that means that we've got to do like maybe 10 studies that are 3 to 4 years each. A lot of them are done concurrently, right? So it's like people like, this is the hot topic in research right now. So after about 5 or 6 years, we've got maybe 10 studies. Then we get guidelines that are developed. Then those guidelines start entering the clinical curricula. And then we start training people with this information. Now, thankfully, we have a robust system of continuing education, which says that all, medical professionals need to be learning like 50 hours of stuff every year. But we don't mandate what that needs to be, right? So we don't say, oh, by the way, like if you're a psychologist or psychiatrist or therapist, you have to, by the way, you need to learn about technology addiction. That never happens. So people will offer information about it. It'll be like well represented at conferences and things like that. But there's no requirement. So right now, I think if you become a therapist in the United States, as far as I'm aware, the average therapy program does not require a single hour of training in anything related to technology addiction. The majority of programs, right? And it's like crazy. Like video game addiction is around 10% of the population now. And it's not a part of our educational process. And so this was fine before when things advanced slowly, but now the rate of change is increasing. So we're trying to educate clinicians and coaches about the problems that y'all face, what we've learned in these fields so that we can enhance the quality of the workforce. And hopefully our education does that, which we don't know yet. But let's shift over to the performance review.
All right. So today we are reviewing Alok's performance. And a performance review, if you don't know, is kind of a yearly process where you and your manager kind of say, like, how am I doing? And so we're going to do Alok's review, but really our goal here is to help you guys get really good at performance reviews so that way you can get the raises that you deserve, work on the things that will help you get there if that's what we need to do, help you kind of stand up for yourself in these situations, help you push back, or if you're a manager, help you conduct them more effectively. Not that, our situation's a little bit different, but I'm really hard on him. Do you think I'm hard on you? Like, I expect a lot. And I
think expectations are high. I don't know if I would say that you're hard on me.
I'm a tough boss. I'm not an easy boss by any means. You probably
I would agree with that.
Yeah, you probably get the easiest version of me.
In some ways.
Okay.
All right,
Great way to start a performance review. All right, let's roll.
So normally I think so we can kind of go through this.
Okay, so a performance review will consist of a couple of different aspects of performance. And typically what happens is first you do your self-assessment and then your manager says, oh, I would actually give you more marks here, which very rarely happens, versus, oh, I think we actually need to work on this. Typically your manager is trying to negotiate you down so that way when it comes to the raise that is in question or the title bump that's in question or whatever, that gets negotiated down too. So the first thing that you guys need to know is that a performance review is a negotiation. So let's get started.
Okay.
Job knowledge.
Chat.
Oh, and by the way, chat, you guys are the boss. That's why we did the whole stakeholder stream. Now you know everything that we've been working on.
So how would you rate my job knowledge? Knowledge of products, policies, and procedures, or knowledge of techniques, skills, software, procedures, and materials? 1 through 6. Let's
3
see.
or
Okay.
4.
Looks like we're getting a 1, a 6, easy 6, 5, 4.
I like how emotes can just be in here.
6 out of 6.
Just gonna give you a 5 head.
All right, Kruti. So it seems like the numbers are all over the place, but I'm seeing the majority of people. I don't know if we have time to run polls for all this. We're just gonna do it chaotically, chat styled.
So here's, I guess, do you want to self-assess?
I think job knowledge, I think in some ways is absolutely a 6. So I think in terms of like the content expertise and some of the things that I know, well, that also begs the question of what is the expectation of performance. But I do think that I
expect you to know how to do your job.
Well, like, so do you expect me to be an expert, right? And then how do you
Absolutely,
continuously
100%.
exceed? So like the gooning video. I think so I think in some ways it's a 6. I think in terms of policies, procedures, software, tech stuff, like I would not say I continuously exceed expectations. I would give myself like probably a 4, where it's like solid, like stream works most of the time. I'm somewhat responsive to things like email and Slack. So I think I'd probably give myself like a 5 if we're including both of those things, but I would split it out.
See, I think your job knowledge for what you are talking about is a 6. I think you take your role very seriously in that I've got to read this paper, I've got to read this book, I have to put this all together. Like, I think in a very pure knowledge, I would put you at a 6. I think your technical, like how to manage all of this, needs a lot of work. So I want to bring you down to a 5. And I think some months I would even slide it down a little bit lower, but there's a fluctuation. Like there's the gooning video, and then there's other random stuff. But I can meet you at a 5.
Okay. Work quality, accountability, understands what needs to be done, performs thorough, high-quality work with attention to detail, accepts personal responsibility for the quality and timeliness of work, acknowledges and corrects mistakes, doesn't make excuses or blame others for errors or problems, does what he or she commits to doing. What do y'all think, chat? What Evo is this? Okay, so looks like that's interesting. People seem to be more 6 focused on this.
Yeah, and I agree. I think the work quality is very high. I think your attention to detail, we can argue about that, but accepts personal responsibility is through the roof, and it's kind of everyone's, for the team anyway. I think that's our favorite thing about you, is that you really take personal responsibility for everything we do here to be excellent. You don't make excuses, you don't blame others. I wish sometimes you would, so we would be able to get to the root of whatever is going on. But I think that's what makes people really love working with you.
I appreciate the desire to start polls. I think we're moving a little bit faster than polling, and I think the chaos of chat is totally fine, but thank you so much, Panda. Accomplishments. Added value to the organization this year by improving processes, procedures, technology, brings creative and innovative ideas and solutions to improve the department and or organization.
Okay. You can self-assess.
I'm going to leave it to chat.
Chat, where are we?
What do y'all think? Brings creative and innovative ideas.
Can that be overdone is such a good question.
Okay, so it looks like it looks like it's averaging out to a 2 or 3. I see a lot of people saying 4. I see some 1, so I think they're giving me a 3. What would you give me?
Added value to the organization this year, obviously. If you didn't, there wouldn't be an organization. Have you improved processes, procedures, or technology? No, I wouldn't say so. Except for, we just went through how the coaching program has strengthened kind of cohort to cohort. But I think that's more the coaching group's win at this point. I think 3 years ago it would have been your win.
Yeah, so I mean, so what's the number?
I would put it at a 3.5, 4.
Okay. So it seems like chat is right. I would give myself, I think, a little bit higher than that. Although I do think that, I think creative and innovative ideas, I don't know if we want to credit.
Well, we'll go with initiative and creativity for that.
Yeah. So I think that, once again, this can be split up into different things. I think that one of the nice things about working here is that rather than me improving a process, which I sometimes do, I think I'm lucky enough to have processes built around me, which is super nice and very rare. I do think I would give myself, I think maybe I give Ludwig credit, but I don't know. I don't know many people who would make a video on the science of gooning and what it does to your brain. And I think that apparently, according to y'all, is a much needed piece of literature on the internet. But so I would say, like, let's bump it to a 4, maybe.
No, let's not ride the high from one success.
Okay, fine, fair enough. Reliability. The extent to which the employee can be depended upon to be available for work, to complete work properly and complete work on time. The degree to which the employee is reliable, trustworthy, and persistent. What do y'all think, chat?
Available for work. Complete the work properly. Complete work on time. The degree to which the employee is reliable.
So I'm seeing 4s to
Oh.
6s.
They just don't know you the way we know you.
Yeah.
I think reliability is the Achilles heel to all of this because we are stretched in so many different directions. Your schedule is an absolute mess. I think people, well, I get all of the Slacks and emails like, hey, can you just get Alok to review this, sign this, look at this, give input here. I'm waiting on Alok, I'm waiting on Alok, I'm waiting on Alok. That's what I get a lot of. So this one I think would maybe go in the needs development category from my perspective. What do you think?
I think that you see that side, but I think at the end of the day, for the last 4 years, 95% of the time when we have a stream scheduled, I show up ready for it unless I get sick or something. For the last 4 years, 5 years, we've had stable stream times, stream appearances. For the last 4 years, we've had regular uploads to our YouTube channel. That degree of reliability of like not really having a gap over the course of 4 years is objectively very difficult to do.
That's true.
So I don't know if you know this, but many creators burn out, right?
I'm aware, yes.
And I think that I get what you're saying in terms of like people will need me to follow up on particular forums and stuff like that. But I think, like you said, there's just a lot of moving pieces.
There is.
And I think we're working on processes so that I'm not, as I sometimes explain to people, I think it's really hard when you are traveling for work, you have to do the work that you don't get excused from the work that you're taking a break from, right? So when I travel for a conference, I'm working during that time, and
Are you talking about the conference that you left to go to the Crunchyroll office? That conference?
that conference that I left for a period of time to go to the Crunchyroll
The one
office,
that we had to
yes.
pull you away from the little arcade
Yes.
machines
Yes.
from? That
Yes.
one?
But that conference where we also presented a poster and we did lots of things, and 13 residents walked up to me and said, I chose psychiatry because I was inspired by you. Yes, that same conference.
Okay. Well, if the category right now is reliability,
Okay.
I'm gonna fixate on some of that stuff. I totally get it. I think the organization's job is to help you. So that's why we're gonna add so many of the process and support staff to help move these pieces along. Why don't you pick a number and I'll negotiate you down?
I would say, honestly, I would give myself a 5.
Okay.
And I think that if you hold us to the standards of the organization,
Yeah.
the reliability of people performing week after week after week for 4 years in a row is very... I don't know many people who do that.
I don't know anybody who can do what you can do, honestly.
Actually, I take that
for
back.
as long as you have.
I think a lot of people in our organization actually do that. So the top of the list is like Tech Teller, because for
Yeah.
every stream that I'm here, he's here.
Well, Tech's performance review was very good.
Tech is awesome.
Yeah.
So I would give myself a 5.
Okay.
So-
I would knock it maybe down to 4, just because I think we do need to recognize that this is an area that we really should pay attention to.
Okay.
Initiative and creativity.
What do y'all think, chat? Initiative and creativity?
So much initiative, so much creativity. The ability to plan work and to proceed with a task without being told every detail, and the ability to make constructive suggestions. This is one where I see a lot of people get hung up. People that are like, well, we should do this and we should do that. And it's one thing to have ideas, but to execute the idea is something else entirely.
Okay.
I think this is one of your strongest.
Yeah, I think chat is trying to give me a 7, so I would say that initiative and creativity, I would give myself 6. I think that's fair.
I'll keep it there.
Okay. So for once, chat, we all agree.
We all agree. Good.
Judgment and problem solving. Solves problems quickly, spots and fixes bottlenecks, looks beyond the obvious and doesn't stop at the first answer, seeks advice from people who have been successful in solving similar problems, notices discrepancies and inconsistencies in available information, uses common sense. So close to a 6.
So close. But the common sense is what's going to get you.
What do y'all think, chat? Okay, so I'm seeing between. It looks like chat has us somewhere probably around a 5, maybe a 6. Okay.
I think as an organization, this is one of our strong suits. Like, we're here to solve problems. I think your ability to look at a solution and see
6 seems right.
a non-obvious problem and solve it creatively, but also quickly is really, really strong. I'll give you a 6 there.
Okay. I think I think that's fair. I think if you had said 5, I think that would be fair too.
Where I would hesitate is fixes bottlenecks, but I think you've kind of put your hand up and said, like, I need help. So we've helped.
Yeah, so I now that I think about it, I'd give it a 6 too, because I think half of the bottlenecks that I fix, you're not even aware of. So they don't hit your awareness because I fix them. So that's one of the challenges with fixing
I'm
problems.
dinging you in the reliability column for the
Okay.
bottlenecks, so I don't need to ding you here too. And that, by the way, in your performance review, don't get double dinged.
Teamwork, team player, fulfills commitments to other team members, puts the team's success before individual success, expresses disagreement constructively and listens and responds respectfully to all team members, gives and welcomes feedback, carries a fair share of the workload. What do y'all think, chat?
I don't know. Mods? I think y'all are gonna... What do y'all think? I think I saw Crow. Crow, this one, you can take this one.
Yeah, I think if Crow says it's a 6, I think Crow's probably the best judge.
Panda's in there too.
I think, yeah. I mean, I think there's... so, I mean, I think the one thing that, as we said, I think this is kind of in reliability, but I think I'm oftentimes the hang up for someone else needing to do something. We are working on that. I think that's getting better.
Crow did not. He just gave you a heart.
No. Crow said 6.
Oh, where?
Yeah.
Looks like a 6 for me. Okay.
So, and when it comes to people like Crow and Panda and Tacteller, like, I think they get, a 6 on teamwork and reliability and all that kind of stuff.
I would have given you a heart.
So I think it's challenging though. So it's easy to say 6 here, but one of the things that I'm sometimes concerned about is, like, anytime there's a power dynamic in an organization, people, I don't know if people feel comfortable expressing disagreement with me. I mean, I know you do. I'm sure that there's some people on our team like Mike and people like that who would do that, but I think sometimes it's challenging for people to potentially do that. So that's something that, while I don't perceive a whole lot of problems there, it's also possible that people don't feel comfortable giving me constructive feedback. And there definitely have been people in the organization who've done that before.
Okay, but I need you to check your email, and I need you to check your Slack, and I need you to check your calendar, and I
Sure.
need you. So I think it's just, I would ding you a little bit because fulfills commitments to other team members. You fulfill it. It's just not necessarily when you say you'll fulfill it. Puts the team's success before individual success. Like, absolutely, hands down, you definitely do that. Expresses disagreement constructively. I almost feel like you express it too constructively. And so some people don't understand that you want them to do something different.
Okay.
And listens and responds respectfully to all team members, of course. Gives and welcomes feedback. Yes, I think you're very receptive to feedback. Carries fair share of the workload. I think you carry, I would have said disproportionate, but I think you have, this is the first time I feel like you are adequately supported.
Okay.
And I think even week to week, I'm seeing so much improvement with just like the teamwork.
Okay. Interpersonal skills, easy to get along with.
But you've got to check your Slack, man.
Yeah, so the challenge that I have is in terms of how many hours a week do you think I should be checking email, checking Slack?
It doesn't matter as long as everyone knows. If you just say, hey, I'll check my email on Friday, and people at least know that, that's fine.
No, what I'm curious about is what do you think is the hourly commitment to fulfill what you're asking for?
Well, what I'm saying is you can determine that. You can help set expectations around whatever it is that you want. But I think that's the big disconnect is people don't know.
Okay.
Are you on Slack? If you're not, set your status or just communicate, hey, I'm going to look at everything at the end of the day. I think that's the thing. I don't necessarily want you spending a ton of time there, but there's a lot of bottlenecks in those communication platforms.
So you don't have a good estimate of how much time it takes to, as you put it, check Slack?
No.
Okay.
But I am happy to work on that with you if you want.
Sure. Interpersonal skills, easy to get along with, treats all people with dignity and respect, approachable, never rude, aware of, and sensitive to what other people are feeling.
Wait. 5 on teamwork.
Oh, 5 on teamwork. Okay.
Until we get...
Was that not double dinging for reliability?
No, because I didn't bring up your communication and reliability.
Okay. It treats all people with dignity and respect, approachable, never rude, aware of and sensitive to what other people are feeling, is at ease with people at all levels, deals effectively with a diverse workforce, does not belittle the opinions or work of other people, demonstrates a high degree of emotional intelligence, truly values and genuinely likes people. What else? Speech skills.
I think you're easy to get along with.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think this is like a easy win for you.
Okay. So I think people are, yeah, you know, it's interesting because I think that
This is where people ding people they don't like. But we don't have a likability problem here, which is really great. And I
so
think so healthy gamers really like culture is super important to our organization. So we pay more attention to this, but like if you're at like a software company or something like that, maybe it's more variable and it's more of like a soft skill than it is something being really important. But the more you move up in management, the more important this stuff becomes to be likable, easy to get along with. I think this is an area I need to work on more, but I think you're good.
yeah. I mean, I still think I could do better because I think that I have noticed that sometimes I feel like I have to step in to situations that require like some interpersonal smoothing over.
Yeah.
And I think being a little bit more like proactive and not letting things get to that point is something I can work on.
All right. Attendance.
I think it depends on what you're talking about.
What are you talking about?
So I think if we're talking about like ultimately stream and YouTube performance, like just showing up on time, and stuff. Like I know we sometimes start 5 to 10 minutes late, or sometimes we have technical difficulties. Um, but I think generally speaking, I think it's pretty good. I don't know, I'll sometimes ask, hey, do y'all need me in that meeting? Because I, have something else to do, and people will say like, yeah, we need you in the meeting. I don't know many times. I can't think of many times, but maybe other people have a different perception where they were expecting me in a meeting and I just like don't show up. I think what's much more common is that I'll check my schedule at the beginning of the week, and then something gets thrown on my schedule, which I wasn't quite aware of. So I think that's been something that's kind of challenging, is that like a lot of
Yeah.
people will just like throw stuff on my schedule. And on a Tuesday, I'll think, okay, like Thursday, I've got time to film content. And then I wake up, or like a Wednesday afternoon, I like check my schedule for tomorrow, and I'm like, I'll see 3 meetings on there that wasn't there. But I think that's, so I think I usually show up at those, but I think people, I think you'll have a better sense of what other people's perception of that is.
Why don't we let the members pick this one? Because I think members probably get the brunt of the attendance moving around. I'm seeing 5s, 6s.
Yeah, so I think I think like a 5 to a 6 is, it seems, where people are.
Okay.
Mikey's giving me a 3. Looks like most people are for 5.
All right. Let's do it.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Average score.
yeah, so I want to also, speaking of reliability and timing, we're at 1 hour. We have about 26 minutes left for stream.
Ruh-roh.
So let's wrap this up and then take a look at cases. Does that sound good?
Sounds good. Thanks for helping me with this, guys. So for goals and upskilling, check Slacks, emails, communicate.
Nope. What? Technological competence.
Yeah, and please, for the love of God, figure out your streaming setup.
Yeah.
Like the whoosh whoosh, all that stuff.
Okay. Set up technical stuff. I think that's pretty fair.
All right, cool.
Yeah, so I think you were kind of saying that before we kind of jump into cases.
Yeah.
So first of all, chat, thank you all very much for being here and helping me out. I got a 5.11, which I'll take.
Nailed it.
So that is solidly in the top bracket, let's
will
say.
not be eliminating your position. How about that?
I think a couple of things to keep in mind. So I was not aware that performance reviews or negotiations, usually like in the medical community, I think we're quite hierarchical. So usually what my experience of performance reviews has been like is like open-ended, also psychiatry. So take that for a grain of salt. What do you think you're doing well? What do you think you could work on? That's usually where things start. When I'm doing a performance review on someone, I really like that approach. And then, sometimes it'll be like some formal kind of like thing like this, where it'll be like, in medicine, it's like patient care and like not attention to detail, but like clinical reasoning and like follow through with like plans and like, ability to communicate and demonstrates empathy and bedside manner. Works with the staff, like the nursing staff and things like that. So like all that stuff is a part of it, right? Whether you're a team player, all that sort of stuff. So I don't usually negotiate. I usually try to listen and really think about, okay, what do I need to do? I've also found that it's not very helpful sometimes to disagree with people, just because it's just not that useful.
Yeah.
So
You said at some point you're like, I don't even bother trying to convince people. I just want to get it over with. But I would put to you guys, this is where like the whole point of the process is to be able to have the hard conversation. So if you check out, that's your choice. But all of the good stuff that you could potentially get from this, hey, I need more support here, or you're expecting too much from me here, or I thought this was a slam dunk. Why don't you think that's a slam dunk? Those kinds of conversations are really good to have here. And you want to be able to kind of say, like, and therefore I deserve a raise, a title bump, an assistant, whatever it is, depending on kind of your level of employment.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's move to cases.
Let's move to cases. Okay. So, and we're watching chat, y'all. So if y'all have questions, just let us know. All right. Career guidance.
Let's do it.
What to expect from what to expect in an annual performance review. I have my first annual performance review coming in early October. The company I worked for didn't really have annual performance review, so this is the first real performance review in my career. I only worked for 2 companies since I graduated high school. I think I performed very well since I joined the company last year, and I was given more responsibilities compared to other hires, and I always get positive feedback from my manager and stakeholders I work with. I don't know what to expect from this review and if there's something I need to prepare. Is this time to discuss a promotion or raise? If so, how do I approach the subject? So, Kruti, what would you say to people who are having their first performance review, like what to expect, how to prepare?
So just the fact that you're taking it seriously is going to be a huge plus. And this is something I would encourage saying, hey, I'm looking forward to my performance review. Ask them, I would like to prepare. Can you share anything with me that helps me understand how you're evaluating performance? And come in with your bullets about like the positive feedback, the projects, and just like we kind of saw, make sure that you're like, there's the accomplishments, there's the job knowledge, but then there's also the reliability, the interpersonal skills. So you don't want to go too hard. Oh, well, I did this one thing. I had the one gooning video. Like, you don't want to necessarily base your whole performance review around a single accomplishment. You really want to think about how you're enabling not just the completion of a project, but you're contributing to these other projects, you're contributing to these other team members, you're a go-to resource for X, Y, and Z, all of that stuff. But you want to come in there basically ready to say, I love working here, I want to do more here, I've been enjoying the additional responsibility. What else do you have for me? How much more responsibility can I take on? This is not the time to discuss a promotion or raise for the first time. It should not be a surprise going into the performance review. Oh, hey, I want a 10% raise. That I think you should kind of say earlier, and then the performance review is to clinch it. And therefore, I want a 10% raise. Let's like make it effective as of this date. So don't bring it up for the first time in the performance review. This is my opinion as a manager, but also someone who has, gotten substantial raises. If you're bringing it up in the performance review, chances are that like the budgets have already closed by that point, early October. Like they're kind of finalizing the budgets that month. So you want them to have already anticipated this person's going to need 15%, 10%, whatever it is. 15% is a lot. Cool. And this might be something also where you say, hey, manager, can we go to get a coffee or meet sometime? Because I want to talk about the performance review with you ahead of time. And that's where you would kind of drop it. Don't put it in an email.
So so let me try to summarize, I think, what I heard Kruti say. The first is that don't put all your eggs in one basket. So really think multidisciplinary about what your contributions are in terms of team dynamics. I saw some great comments from chat about, like pointing out particular, I kind of think about them as inflection points, things where if I were not here and did not do what I did, this would be different. This is a noticeable thing that I kind of did. So I think those are right. That's kind of what you said. So think very multidisciplinary. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. A couple of other like concrete tips, like don't get dinged for the same thing across multiple areas.
Don't let your manager put all their eggs in one basket either. right? If they're like, well, that one project, you don't want to get dinged for the same thing. You want to be able to say, hey, this went wrong and here's why. Here's what I'm going to do about it. But also, you guys should consider investing in another person or a tool, or we need to rethink this process. One of those things.
And then also, I think you talked about, you know, if you're going for a promotion or raise, like don't spring it on them then, right? So I think about, and just to kind of add a little bit of context, I was reading chat, so sorry if you mentioned this and I zoned out. So I think the process of a raise can take time. The process of a promotion takes time. So the problem is that if you bring it up, then your manager has to like start jumping through the hoops. And ideally what you want to do is have that process be at least somewhat, be aware of that process starting early, have it start kind of going through those hoops. So, and sometimes like things get really wonky in terms of just like timing. So let's say there's like a place that opens up in your company and you want to be considered for that. Your manager being aware that you're maybe like up for promotion or you're really doing a good job, like you don't want to just let them know during your performance review. Because the performance review, I think also, and this is where I get into some weird specifics, but if you think about the process of the performance review, some places will have like, okay, after all of our performance reviews, let's figure out, okay, who's getting promoted, who's getting raises. And on the flip side, some people will sort of figure that out and make that determination. And then it's a review, right? The decisions have been made. People have sort of figured things out. And now we're going to review it. It has already been determined. And even in the subtle language of the word review is something that you do when something is complete, not when things are being managed. The other consideration that I think, so my perspective is different, right? So I do psychiatry and I also do things like executive coaching. I want to focus on this because I think this really messes with a lot of people. I always get positive feedback from my manager and stakeholders. So I see this all the time in med school. So in med school, med students will ask there are basically 4 grades. There are 3, there's failure, there's pass, which is like basically like a C. There's high pass, which is a B, which is the average grade. And then there's honors, which is an A. So maybe like 20 to 25% of people get A's. About 60 to 70% of people get B's. And then like 10% get passes or less. So one of the most common things that I hear from people is med students will ask people, hey, how am I doing? And everyone will say, you're doing great.
Yeah.
And then when they get their grade, they're stunned to see that it's a B. And they're like, I thought you said I was doing great. And in med school, great is average. So one thing that y'all need to be super careful about is if you get positive feedback, there is a bias in that feedback usually. Because I want y'all to think about the people that you work with. When do you say someone does a great job? Usually when they did a pretty good job. And if someone does a bad job, how likely are you to give them spontaneous feedback? So when stakeholders are happy, they'll either ignore you or say you do a pretty good job. The people who are not happy are probably not going to talk to you. Great is a very simple way to end a conversation. Hey, how are things going? Things are going great. Right? There's no depth to it. So I think sometimes people need to work on being a little bit more proactive and getting feedback. You don't want to be like one of these, there was a slew of boomer managers who were unhappy with millennials because millennials always needed reassurance about how they're doing. I think that's an unfair take, but you don't want to be like needy and at the same time asking people, hey, I was hoping you had a few minutes to like talk. Like I was hoping to sit down with you for like 10 to 15 minutes. And I'd like to learn, what you think I'm doing well and what you think I could be doing better. Mm-hmm. And give them some degree of frame. Don't give them the option to say you're doing great because that could be average. And so just be a little bit careful about like if people are giving you positive feedback, that doesn't actually mean you're doing exceptional, which is crazy. But be careful about that. Okay. Let's go to... Okay, maybe this one?
Yeah.
So, how to deal with performance review anxiety. This is my second... You want to read this one while I'm yawning, drinking water to listen to your chat?
Reliability. How to deal with performance review anxiety. This is my second performance evaluation of my first post-college job. The first year was rocky, to say the least, filled with a pip, difficult conversations with my boss, and a not-so-great first annual performance review. However, it has been 7 months since I've been in that position. Since then, I have taken on more projects and completed more project tasks compared to the rest of my colleagues. I've tried to step up by taking more initiative at work, trying to lead more on projects I am assigned. I've received a couple of recognition for my work occasionally. I know there are things I can still work on. But I just can't help but have this anxiety that if my first performance review is bad, how will my second performance review be any better? I want to show my boss that I have improved and become more comfortable in my job. Context, also, I don't know if this is relevant, but what happens at my work during performance evaluation is my boss sends us questions that we are to type out an email to my boss, which will give us something to talk about. Additionally, my job is remote. Okay, great. Okay, so performance review anxiety is one thing, how you handle kind of your review after being on a PIP, which is a performance improvement plan, which is typically given out when it's like one step away from being fired in a lot of cases, where it's like a manager has tried and tried and tried to communicate, hey, this isn't working. And nothing seems to really change from that. So then people are put on a performance improvement plan to fix X, Y, and Z. And if they're not fixed within 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, then the employment relationship is terminated. So a PIP is like a lot of times the last step for people. So if this person has been on a PIP and is basically taken it really seriously and has been stepping up, getting recognition, completing more, doing more, and showing basically a lot of potential, this performance review is basically trying to say, like, I did it. Like, I'm back to baseline. I think it would be a little... I think most managers at most companies are not going to be receptive to like a raise promotion conversation in the first performance review after a PIP. That's where you're kind of wanting to say, like, am I out of the weeds? Like, have I fixed everything that you guys wanted to fix? So in my opinion, the attitude going into this is like, hey, thanks so much for pointing these things out. I've really taken it seriously. I've really tried my best to improve on X, Y, and Z. I think you've seen this come through in projects A, B, and C. A couple of things I'm still working on are E, F, and G. What do you think? Is there anything else you would add? Is there anything that you think doesn't hit one of those categories? If there's like a particular project you want to talk about, I would kind of say, like, can we talk about the improvements on this particular project? Because I think I could really keep developing in that area. Things like that are some of the questions that I would lay out. The other thing that you might consider is, I don't know exactly how to say this without being specific, so I'm going to try my best. But basically, if this is your job and half of it is stuff that you're not very good at, and that's what the PIP was about, but there's an opening for a role that is maybe more what you're really good at, I would kind of say, like, hey, can we explore a title change where my duties are primarily this stuff, and like lean into your strengths? And you can kind of say, like, I fixed all the stuff and I'm committed to continuing to improve there, but I have these strengths that I think the company could benefit from. So I wonder if we could rescope my role a little bit. And I think that'll set you up for success in the next performance review.
Yeah, so great answer. I think I'll comment a little bit more on the anxiety piece.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing to understand is that there's a difference between performance review anxiety and performance review anticipatory trauma, like a trauma response. So if you've had, so I think anxiety for a performance review is very normal at all stages of the performance review. So anytime something is important, our body, our brain, our physiology increase our level of anxiety, because anxiety focuses our attention and energy. So this is a moment where you're walking in, you want to be focused. So anxiety relating to a performance review is healthy. Second thing is that if you've had a bad performance review, then the mechanism changes a little bit. We're not just talking about baseline anxiety anymore. Now there has been a negative experience, and I use the word trauma here loosely. I don't mean that it's like traumatic, like with a capital T. What I mean is that anytime a human organism has a negative experience, it adapts to protect itself from that experience. So if I burn myself on a hot pan, there's literally there are epigenetic changes. There are changes to the way that my genes are transcribed. There are changes to the way that I focus my attention so that that doesn't happen again. So I think post-performance review traumatic response is a little bit different from anxiety and requires a different approach. So once you are in a situation where you had a bad performance review, now you are expecting another bad performance review. So what we really want to focus on is I've tried to step up by taking more initiative at work, trying to lead projects, received recognition a couple of times. I can't help but have this anxiety that my first performance review was bad. So a lot of times what happens is when we make progress, we are not able to be reassured by that progress, right? I still have this kind of traumatic reaction to this is going to happen again. And I think what we basically want to do is just, first of all, notice that, and acknowledge that until I was worried, this is something I'm worried is going to be bad. The only way you can get real reassurance and calm down that anxiety is to have a second performance review that is not bad, right? That's really where that calmness is going to come from. Oh, I burned myself on this pan. Let me touch it 10 minutes later. Oh, now it's cooled down. Now I know it's safe to touch. So if we have a negative experience, one of the biggest mistakes that we make is we assume that I can think my way out of a negative experience. The real antidote to a negative experience is a positive experience, is some kind of balancing the same level of information. That's one thing. Second thing is, so then how do we prepare with this anxiety or with this kind of trauma response? And that's where I think it's really tunneling down into what you have done. So these are their complaints. Here's what I've done. The third thing that we want to do is also accept that you can get another negative performance review. Did you do what you knew how to do? Did you do what you could when it comes to dealing with this feedback? And there's a process of detachment or acceptance. If you look at ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, detachment, if you look at spirituality, there's an emphasis even on growth mindset of focusing on what you can control. What are you doing? Are you mocking me?
I have nothing else to do.
Okay. And so treats others with respect, is a constructive team player, and supports the work that other people do.
My interpersonal skills are a known area of development.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Can we ding you for this across two things or just
Ding
one?
me.
Okay. So I think that going through some of that stuff and really focusing on what you can do, what you have done, and then recognize that that's really what the best that you can do. So some amount of acceptance, some amount of preparation, and some amount of recognizing that you may not get a resolution of anxiety. Okay. Bad performance. Which one do you want to do? Surprisingly bad performance review or bad performance review?
I just want to quickly address some of the comments in chat. Yes, a PIP is basically, it can be in a lot of companies, documentation for avoiding a wrongful termination suit. So if your company is like that, and then I would CC HR or forward HR the email that you wrote with your questions. So that way that goes as part of your documentation that you're still there. And somebody else pointed out that if you're on a PIP, you should be looking for a path out. I kind of agree with that, where it's if it's been rocky and you're working this hard to kind of just come back to baseline, I would keep your eyes open for another role, but take everything that you can possibly learn from this role and be able to leave from this role what somebody's saying, hey, this person really can step up. Try to make the most of your time and relationships there before you do leave.
Yes.
Alright.
So one thing I want to also, I'm seeing a lot of comments, and like Kruti was saying, a PIP can be something. So I think one of the biggest common mistakes that I see on the internet is the assumption that all companies are the same. So I certainly know that, we've had PIPs at our company where the goal really is to help this person succeed here,
Yeah.
not like, it's like, hey, like there's a lot of stuff that you're doing great, and there are some things that absolutely need to be fixed. And the goal of the PIP, in some cases that I've seen, is actually to really help this person work here. I think that, there's all this talk about corporations just want one thing. I think corporations are just like everything else, where there's heterogeneity in terms of good bosses, bad bosses, good companies, bad companies. I've worked at 5, 6 hospitals over the course of my life, 7, maybe 8. I don't know. Like I worked at 7, like 5 to 8 different hospitals, and the bosses at all of those hospitals are not the same.
Yeah.
We can make global statements about like healthcare, but there's a lot of variety. And even within companies, there are variety. There can be good bosses and bad bosses in the same company. So I think that it's very easy to get disgruntled. I think it's very easy to lose hope. It's just like someone who's been in abusive relationships. You can swear off all relationships because you've had a string of bad experiences. And that makes logical sense. And at the same time, you also could be shooting yourself in the foot by assuming that your company, the company that you work for, is out to get you. And so if you take that attitude with them, sometimes that's true. Sometimes it's really antagonistic. But the majority of places that I've worked, there's usually like people are trying to, have a collaborative effort.
People firing somebody and then trying to hire somebody and train them is a costly and time intensive process. And if you have a manager that doesn't want to do all that, then they're going to want to help you kind of get what you need to do done without them having to do the most to get you there. So basically everybody is just trying to make their lives as easy as possible. I think we should move to the next one.
I wanted to take just one question.
Okay,
Why
sure.
can't your boss just tell you what you need to improve in? Why formalize it into a performance review? Seems like a whole lot of job justification.
Yeah.
So in the worst case scenarios it is, but I hate to say this, when I work with clients and patients, oftentimes they do not realize how their boss is telling them what they need to improve in, and they're not getting the message. Yeah. So sometimes people need a clear written directive for it to sink in.
Yeah. There's a lot of corporate speak of the clarity could have used some work, and we do the feedback sandwich of something positive, negative, positive. So it can just be really confusing, what actually needs to happen.
Yeah. So I think sometimes it's you don't quite realize the severity. The manager is communicating in a way where they're happy with 50% of what you do, unhappy with 50% of what you do. And so oftentimes verbal communications just get lost.
This is also I work with an executive coach, and it's helped me communicate a little bit more clearly and confidently, because sometimes I'm super blunt because I get impatient with all of the polite corporate speak and the cushioning, but the blunt is way more effective of hey, I just really need you to check your Slack and email and figure out your technical setup. This is what we need, right? So if I work with an executive coach, we have career coaches at Healthy Gamer. So if communication is something that you want to work through, a coach can really do a lot there.
Okay, bad performance review. You want to take it away?
Sure. I just received a 2 out of 5 for my job review. Rough. Okay, straight out of graduation, and this is my first job. I have been with this company for around 1.5 years. I have had 3 managers already in a span of a year. The recent manager is very competent and expects us to be doing a lot of things like data pulling that was initially done by other teams. I realized this is a way of improving myself. However, he wants things a certain way and disregards any of my ideas, deeming them as wrong. He usually does not give me enough background on a project and expects me to work independently with the highest attention to detail. Lately, due to some issues with family, I have been making mistakes in the report, which he is quick to catch. I acknowledge that my work needs a lot of improvement, and I am willing to go above and beyond to improve myself. However, I recently received a very bad feedback from my manager stating that due to these mistakes, he is not confident in my work and that I lack dependability and accountability. He has been pushing my one-on-ones for a month now and does not answer any clarification questions that I ask. Lately, he has not been communicating deadlines to me and lets me know last minute when something is due. We were supposed to have a meeting this week after I received the bad performance review, but he pushed it to next week. I have not been contacted by HR with regards to a PIP. I understand he has already made up his mind about me and is not willing to give me a chance to improve. How should I approach this situation? Ideally, I would like to keep my job until I find a new one that I have already started looking for. I know I messed up and I've learned a lot through these mistakes and hope to improve myself. Am I a lost cause in this company? My TLDR is yes, kind of.
What do you read here that makes you feel that way?
Hot potato. He's had 3 managers in the span of a year. This is a good manager. A competent expects us to be doing a lot of things. So this is a hands-on manager, it sounds like, and is kind of wants things done a certain way. I think this manager has a really low tolerance for mistakes. And as much as you can not make a mistake again, the fact is you've made that mistake. And so I think it is not unreasonable that the manager has basically said, oh God, this guy, can't trust him with anything, bouncing around, can't even get this right. He keeps asking me all these questions. Like, from that manager's point of view, I can see how this is like, oh, it's not even worth the documentation. Can we just fire him already? Like, I can kind of see that perspective from a manager, and I think it is a very steep uphill climb for this person with this manager.
So I love this because I think, Kruti, you're really awesome at like how you read these things and look at these things. It really is like a CEO's perspective, because I see something very, very different. I don't think that this person, it even starts with like little things.
Can I just preface this by saying this is not like, I'm not saying this is necessarily fair. I think this is just what's happening. It's also this person's first job, so I can see like inexperienced hands-on manager just being like, oh, this fucking kid.
So I think that, so what I see here is like a lot of cognitive signs that would concern me about cognitive bias. So when I do executive coaching and when we have like career coaching, this is like a great example, I think, of what we're good at and how we try to help people. So the first thing that we see is I've had 3 managers. So I've been around this company for 1.5 years. Straight out of graduation, this is my first job. I have had 3 managers. The recent manager is very competent and expects us to do a lot of other things. So what do y'all think these 3 things are? How would you classify these 3 statements? What do y'all think? Well, how would you classify these? What do you think this is?
I have had 3 managers is like a factual statement. Recent manager is competent, shows respect, a subjective experience. The expectation is another like interpretation. I don't know if that's the direction you're going or
Brilliant. So someone says a mess of a workplace, someone else says stress, and then defensive excuses. Oh, here's all the crap that is going on that is wrong at my job that is going to set me up for failure. So also the fact that this comes first, right? He's saying, I got a bad performance review. Let's start by giving me a lot of ego protective kind of stuff. Okay. I realize this is a way of improving myself, but he wants certain things a certain way and disregards my ideas, deeming them wrong. Okay? So once again, we're starting off with a lot of defensiveness. We're starting off with a, hey, this isn't my fault. This is what my manager does wrong. Expects me to work independently with high level of detail, right? And now, hold on. Now we have lately, due to some family issues, I have been making mistakes in the report, which he is quick to catch. Not, I made a mistake. This is, I am making mistakes and they seem to be basic mistakes because my manager is catching them quickly, right? So what we have is, here is the actual problem. Here's a bunch of excuses. And they're not excuses, they're reasons. So I'll share one thing with y'all real quick. So while I was in residency,
I think that's why I'm reading this as like the manager is just gonna be like, this fucking kid, because there's so, yeah, okay, go ahead.
Right. So I think that, and we can get to that. So I had one basically negative performance review over the course of residency, and it was great because my manager basically said, you've been making a lot of mistakes. And then the next words out of her mouth were like, this is not you. Like, is something going on? She's like, you did here. I've known you for 4 years and I've never seen you do this before. So, and then I didn't realize at the time I was going through a lot of family issues. And so like, we were working through some stuff and things like that. I didn't realize it was really affecting my performance. Like, I recognized I was making small mistakes that my manager caught. Like, what is the dosage of the medication? What medications is this patient on? And thankfully, like, my manager was really good and she knows the stuff too and stuff like that. But like, sometimes you make mistakes. And what we have to be super careful about is this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is when we talk about like, how would I work with this person? I would, and then here's all the other reasons why, hey, here's all the stuff that my manager is doing wrong, right? So on the one hand, there's some excuses. On the other hand, like, I have some very real challenges here, which make it hard for me to succeed. At the same time, I am actually making mistakes. So this is also where we think about it in terms of fit. So there's something about the way that you work, like however he wants things a certain way and disregards my ideas, deeming them as wrong, right? So when I think about this, like when I'm like as an attending, or like when I'm reviewing like medical students or residents, if someone is making basic mistakes, like if you can't, like I remember we fucking had this kid, man. So we had this med student when I was a resident. I was an intern actually. And so I had a team of interns I was working with. And there was like this medical student who was, a medical student at Harvard Medical School. And so was very smart, very capable. And like he had lots of brilliant ideas and like suggested that we do things differently and had like his perspectives and stuff like that, which is great. But like his one job, like, so we start with, okay, show up every morning and get vital signs on your patients. Like when I show up, you're going to show up. I'm going to show up at 6:30. You're going to show up at 7 o'clock. We're going to start rounds at 7:15. What I need you to do is walk to the nurse's station, open up a booklet, and make sure that our patients are not medically ill, that no one's got a fever, no one's got a heart attack. Just look at the normal vital sign numbers and just bring them to me at 7:15. Like first, do this really basic thing. And, there are some students that despite their brilliance, like can't do the basics. And I want y'all to think about when someone can't get a report right, how open are you to like their perspective on things when they're straight out of graduation with their first job, right? So like a lot of times people will have great creative ideas, but it's like there's like a sequencing here, which I think is lost.
Yeah.
So your manager is not going to listen to what your opinions are if you can't do the basics.
It's like a marketing intern that's like, we need a new logo. You're like, calm down.
Yeah, and it's not that those ideas don't have merit. It's like there's a certain stepwise fashion here. Yeah. So what I would do with this person is like really get them to critically look at some of these excuses, really critically get them to look at like, did you even communicate that there are issues going on with your family? Or Does because if your boss has no idea that you're stressed out elsewhere, they're just going to think you're doing a crappy job. And this is where when we get to like the coaching aspect, it's about talking to, like, it's like people don't fucking know this, right? Because y'all are never taught. We're never taught, hey, when I'm having trouble, I should go to my manager. And that sounds way better. People think, oh my God, it sounds like I'm making excuses. That sounds way better than this. When one of my interns or residents or whatever comes to me and says, hey, I'm going through a divorce, I'm like, okay, bro, I get it. That's got to be really challenging. I don't consider that an excuse. Like, I'm going to expect a dip in your performance. I respect your professionalism for like telling me that this is going on. You don't have to disclose that, right? And like, let me know what I can do to help.
Yeah. That's usually the follow-up question. What do you need?
Right. So, and I think for us, what we need to do is if y'all are having bad performance reviews, be careful about your defensive thinking. Be careful about the excuses that you make. Be careful about the ways that you blame your boss. And then what we want to do is turn this into a constructive plan to where, hey, I do need to tell my boss, this has been going on with me recently. I'm sorry it's affected my work performance. And also, hey, I know that you're telling me that I need to do these things, but it's my understanding that like, I recognize that I need to grow and I'm working on that. It's really hard for me to do my part when you keep on pushing our meetings back. Here are 6 cases in the last 2 months where I thought we were meeting because I need clarification. Here are 14 emails that I've sent you because you're asking me for something. I'm trying to make sure it is right. I can't do that if you don't respond to me. Like, we've isolated that these are problems. I don't know how to fix this. So I'm doing the best that I can. I'm trying to make sure that you are happy with it. I don't want to put this into a report until you tell me I'm on the right direction. Right? And so this is where what happens is like with our justice boner and our own shared trauma around bad bosses, we're like, man, fuck this place, move on. At the same time, like, you know, managers need feedback too. And you can succeed here. I don't think that I think, does this person have a mark against them? Absolutely. But what I've found is that the reason that the first, you know, mark against you becomes your destiny is because people are not taught how to turn that boat around.
Yeah.
They're not taught this stuff. And when they get taught this stuff, I see astronomical changes. Going from I'm on a PIP to I'm now MVP of the team. I've seen that happen in 18 months. I've had multiple like clients who are able to do that. I think we see that in our coaching program too. People are able to turn things around. And it's just because we haven't been taught how to look at this.
My favorite examples are, they're like, I'm really good at my job. I'm just going to go freelance. I'm just going to go on my own, from our coaching program anyway.
Yeah, so I've seen that too, where I had literally a patient come in one day and said, "Hey, I got a bad performance review. I think my anxiety is so crippling that like it's interfering with my ability to work and it's starting to affect things. I'm afraid I'm gonna get fired. Can you help me with my anxiety so I can keep my job and even excel?" And I said, "Sure, let's try." And then 18 months later, they fixed their anxiety, fixed things at work, and then realized this is not a good fit. And they fucking quit. So chief complaint, a person walking in the door, is please help me not get fired. 18 months later, they're like, I'm fucking done with this place. Mm-hmm. And I think we see that a lot too. And that doesn't mean that the place is bad. In this case, I think this place was, it was, there's a lot of toxicity in investment banking. But I think that like, a lot of times it's not bad or good. It's about fit. The way that your manager likes to work, you may not be a great fit with them. And sometimes it's just about finding the right fit. I know certainly I've had jobs where I have good relationships with my prior bosses and I absolutely hate working with them. Like both of those things can be true. Yeah, so that's my take. If you're knowingly making mistakes at your job, is it justified to call out your manager? Absolutely. But I think it's important. I don't like the term call out. I think it is important. So this is good relationship advice for y'all. I hope it's good. I'm pretty sure it's good. in a relationship, whether it be husband and wife or boss and employee,
Partners.
partners, or power dynamics, right? Like, you should acknowledge your own mistakes and contributions to the relationship and call attention to the mistakes that other people are making, right? I don't think about it as calling out our mistakes. And I think this is where changing our thinking really changes our language and our tone and stuff like that. So what I would say, what is your contribution to the situation? What is your manager's contribution to the situation? Y'all are creating this with the two of you. And it's not about right or wrong. It's like two things coming together. Like, olives are great and chocolate is great. That doesn't mean that they belong together.
Yeah. Next.
I think we're kind of at the end. I mean,
On the Healthy Gamer subreddit, somebody recently posted a question. Do you mind just checking that out really quick?
sure. While I'm doing that, chat, y'all can, Kruti can look at chat, and I think we've got time for one more. Yeah, I think it's unfortunate, but like, there's, oh my God, Sag.
Go up or no? Is it down here?
I don't know what we're looking for. I'm scrolling through. Now we're into the dating.
Oh,
I think that we could be.
today's Romantic Friday.
Oh, how can stupid people advance in their career?
This one, yes.
I mean, we can talk about this. Hold on.
Because this, I think, is somebody that, if I remember correctly, it was a substance.
Is this what you wanted to look at?
Yeah. It's long, though. I don't know if you have the bandwidth, but
Why don't you read it?
Pretty good.
Go ahead.
Let me take something. How can stupid people advance in their careers? I fucked up hard in life before I even turned 18. I would skip school and fuck around in the neighborhood. I was involved with not the best people, and we did some terrible things that I really regret. Since my parents realized my sisters were already pretty successful, they never cared about me. I finished high school with a 2.6 GPA. Immediately after graduation, I left my family without telling them and moved to another city. I left because I've done some terrible that I'm not proud of. I later became an alcoholic to escape this reality. My family, especially my sisters, did try to contact me. They filed a missing persons report and had the police find me, but I told them I did not want to go back. The police respected my decision since I was an adult now. In this new city, I was homeless for about a few weeks, but I was able to find a job through a local church that I've been going to for help. For the next 7 years, I ignored everyone, continued drinking, lived in isolation, and shortly moved on to sticking with a janitor job at a mall. The pay is okay, and I am able to afford a decent living, but it will not sustain my mental and physical health anymore. I want to find a better job. I want to get a girlfriend and eventually start a family. I want to be able to surround myself with happiness. I want to wake up one day and not cry for hours before work. Okay, there's more along that. Okay, so thanks to Dr. K's videos, I've been slowly making changes for the past few years. Today, I've been sober for over 2 years and still trying my best to get better. Did you catch any of that?
You can summarize it for me in a minute.
Okay, the problem is that I've been stupid my entire life and I want to get an education, college degree, and find a higher paying job. I started at a local community college and I plan to transfer to a 4-year later, but it looks like it might never happen. During my first semester, I barely passed my English class with a C and failed my algebra class. It was hard to balance work and going to classes. I don't have a car, can't really afford the bus, so I have to borrow my landlord's bike for 14 miles to and from school. I just don't understand anything my professors talk about. I still don't know what a function is and how it relates to algebra. I don't even know how to graph things. I went to tutoring and office hours, but didn't help. Did not understand any of the terms she was talking about. Every time I try to study, I start to think about other things, or I fall asleep from being so tired. How can someone as stupid as me succeed? I'm honestly at a loss, and I feel like I'm going downhill. I don't understand why learning is so hard for me, but seems so easy for others. I'm not sure what to do. I've been following Dr. K's advice and was able to make so many of these changes, but I'm currently facing a barrier of just being so stupid that I can probably never get a college degree and be able to find a better job. Without a better job and a better life, I don't know if I can ever reconnect with my family. I still love my family, especially my sisters. They really took care of me growing up, but I was a brutal F up. I feel like they are extremely pissed off at me after all I have done, and especially after I left home without telling anyone. I really want to make amends. What Dr. K video can I watch to fix this problem?
Okay. You want to try to just give me a quick summary? I mean, I think I caught the broad strokes of it, but
The summary is a lot of kind of neglected as a child, effed up a lot as kind of a 16, 17, 18-year-old, alcoholism, and now a lot of trouble, kind of having trouble figuring out where to get started. I think their goal is a better job, but broke, landlord, can't get around, can't study, can't find good teachers.
okay. Do you have, I mean, you were interested in this one, so did you have thoughts about it?
I mean, I've heard you talk about shit life syndrome before, so it feels like it's that. And they're trying to seek employment. That's the goal. And they're asking which video they can watch is what kind of gets me.
Okay. I mean, but did you want to say something about it? Or, I mean, I have lots of thoughts.
There's no video.
Okay.
There's no video from...
Is
there a video?
We have we did a stream and or video about being below average IQ and how to succeed.
So that one and shit life syndrome, probably?
Yeah, those are two great places to start. But
Okay.
I think this is what we're here for, right?
I think
Is
it's
it-
going to be more than a video, though.
If there isn't a video, we're gonna make one.
Here it is!
So let's start with. I'm sorry. Did you have like advice or comments, or I mean, I have an answer, but
Good. Yeah,
Okay.
this one is like beyond me.
so this is going to be kind of memeish and trollish and potentially lacking compassion. But so I've worked with a lot of people who are stupid. They've and I would say the
Your
biggest.
interpersonal skills just got a ding.
So I would say that the biggest mistake that they make is that they're actually not nearly as stupid as they think they are. So let's
So they're
understand
stupid
this.
and wrong.
Thankfully, yes. So I would say a very common experience as a psychiatrist is that the beliefs that my patients have about themselves are thankfully wrong. They are not complete wastes of space. Sometimes they're not even what classifies as stupid. And so what I'd love to do is talk about that first. And then if you are average or below average IQ, how you can still be professionally successful, assuming that is correct. So I want y'all to think about this, first of all. When we talk about intelligence and stupidity, there are parts of that that are like stats on our character sheet, right? So I have like an int that is somewhere between 3 and 18. That is what we call IQ. The main thing to understand, though, is that when you feel stupid or when someone looks stupid, that doesn't actually necessarily correlate with the IQ. The performance of someone's brain is influenced by all kinds of factors. So there are a couple of things that I think people will mistake for stupidity. One is that if you've used substances, the process of using those substances and detoxifying from those substances, and your brain continuing to develop if you use substances in teenage years, does not make you stupid. It just means that if you used drugs between, let's say, the ages of like 15 and 17, and then you get sober at 18, it's going to take a couple of years for your brain to develop back to the way that it used to be. So that's the first thing. You will get smarter. Second thing to consider is that there are temporary factors that result in what appears to be stupidity. So if someone says, I get C's and F's, I got C's and F's, does that mean I'm stupid? I mean, on some level, absolutely. And at the same time, this person is telling me that anytime they try to study, they fall asleep. So I've had patients who have C's and F's, and turns out, wild, you're anemic, right? You don't have blood. You don't have red blood cells in the liquid in your arteries and veins. So like you just feel constant fatigue and you can't stress yourself cognitively. So there's some amount of substances that are involved, right, which impair your mental acuity. Last time I checked, like alcohol doesn't boost your IQ. You know, I know we think it does, but it really doesn't. There are cases where alcohol can effectively boost your IQ, which is that if your mind is so hyper functional and like so like running in a million directions and so anxious, sometimes artificially slowing down your mind can improve your end thought process. I've also worked with certain esports professionals who absolutely wreck the shitties when they're like hungover or drunk, and it's wild. Fascinating. There are some cases where you can make an argument that alcohol can be a performance enhancer. But generally speaking, if substances are involved, if you're feeling tired all the time, both of these things don't mean you're stupid. Then the third thing that happens is once you believe you are stupid, this comes with mood changes. And once your mood starts to get low, we know scientifically that a low mood impairs your cognitive performance. So when people are in the midst of a depressive episode, their actual, like, we test these things very, very minutely. So we'll do things like, you know, like these various like grammar tests or like fit this shape into this shape. This is like basic science psychological research where there are like lots of mental functions that are impaired by low mood. So that's the third thing. And then I would say the most common misdiagnosis of stupidity is confusing stupidity with ignorance. So if you don't know what a function is and you can't follow your tutors, if you had years of like skating through high school while you were drinking, while you were being a degenerate, you're going to hit this brick wall, right? So we're like, now you missed a few years of education. And so catching up in algebra is not going to get fixed with going to your tutor for like 4 weeks in a row. Catching up in algebra means years of education, right? It's really going back and learning all of that stuff. I saw something, it's kind of sad. There's someone that people really like to make fun of on the internet because in some ways this person is not perceived as the kindest human being. And there was something about, you know, this person was reading the definition of a particular political thing and they were having difficulty pronouncing the words. And then everyone is like, lol, this kid is so stupid. This could be a smart kid who has dyslexia, right? Like this is what happens is we judge things as stupidity so quickly. I think stupidity and smartness are actually lazy terms that we use to describe performance that are far more complex than they appear to be. So if you're stupid, the question is, were you taught how to learn? So I remember, like, you know, I failed a lot, and I remember cracking open, like, to just think about how insane this is. Like, I mean, it's so normal, but it's also like insane. Cracking open a calculus textbook and trying to read it and being like, I don't understand any of this. I was never taught how to study. No. The crazy thing is that this kid is saying that his sisters are performing well. This kid could be gifted. The number of gifted kids I've worked with who believe they're stupid is astronomical. So there's ignorance, there's missing developmental milestones, right? So if you like don't learn how to walk, it's really hard to run. That doesn't mean that you're incapable of running. That just means you skipped a step. There's simple things like fatigue or sleep apnea or all this kind of stuff. There's low mood. All of these things can result in stupidity. But it's not really stupidity. It's not low IQ. The good news is that since there are so many things wrong here, what we are capable of, see, someone who's stupid thinks that there's no way I can fly so high. We think about stupidity as a cap. It's like a level cap, right? That's the way that we think about it. I can only go so high. The interesting thing is that if you're stupid and there's a lot of wrong stuff in your life, each thing that is wrong actually raises the cap on what you're capable of. People will look at me and they'll say, oh, my life is an absolute mess. I had a traumatic upbringing. I didn't know how to do this. I was using drugs. I was doing this. Therefore, I am screwed. And honestly, my clinical experience is that those people misestimate what they're capable of, because these are all the things to fix. If you failed out of community college after doing drugs, after doing this, imagine what you could do if we fixed all those problems. If you did not have all of those handicaps, what would you be capable of? And this is what I see overwhelmingly, is that people do really well. Now, what about the people who are below average IQ? So let's say 1 standard deviation below the norm. Once you get to 2 standard deviations to 3 standard deviations below the norm, I think it's a different ballgame. So if you've got like a sub 60 IQ, I think that leads to a lot of functional impairment that makes it very hard to live a standard life. Doesn't mean that you can't live a successful life. Doesn't mean that you can't live a happy life. I've seen that as well with people who are sub 60 IQ. It just means that you need a separate playbook to succeed. But for the people who are between, let's say, 60 and 100, the good news is that intelligence doesn't necessarily correlate with like success in a profession. So one really interesting thing, if you look at the top 1% of earners, they are not as smart as the top 10% of earners. They actually have lower IQ. If you look at people who are part of Mensa, people who are part of Mensa don't necessarily do a great job of like earning money. So if you look at what correlates with career success, what I think is actually far more important than IQ, it depends on your job. So if you're like a freelance creative person, if I'm sitting by myself and I'm developing video games or I'm writing a book or something like that, then IQ may very highly correlate. But if you look at like what correlates with like general success, I think being a team player, being reliable, being adaptable, showing up. Like we have people in our company, and part of like the solve for my reliability is having people that make sure the trains run on time. And thankfully these people are also brilliant, so take that with a grain of salt. But I've absolutely seen people that I've worked with succeed, get promoted, even become managers because their EQ is quite good. They're incredibly reliable. They show up to things on time. They're organized. There are all kinds of things besides processing power, analytical power, and even problem solving that correlate with success in the workplace. Yep. And at the top of the list is reliability. If you look at all these fucking burnt out gifted kids in our community, they're so smart. Why aren't they super successful? Because they have difficulty showing up. Because they have difficulty being reliable. The number of times that when I was struggling in my life, I would have traded half of my IQ for an ounce of discipline is astronomical. I wish I was more disciplined. I wish I was more disciplined. I wish I was more disciplined. So if you're below average IQ, focus on showing up, focus on reliability, and focus on helping other people. And that is invaluable in a workplace. Like you think about, like I've never, ever, I've not seen a single case, and this is crazy given the size of the internet. I've never seen a single case of, hey, this asshole at work shows up at work all the time. This asshole, is supportive when I need help. This person is way too organized and screws up things. What I've absolutely heard is this asshole is too smart for their own good. Absolutely. I know. I'm the asshole. That's half the brand. Right? So this is like, it's wild, but I think we grossly overestimate the value of intelligence. And we know that as a community of like burnt out gifted kids, right? So if you're stupid or you think you're stupid, the first thing is look at stupidity, look at the differential diagnosis of stupidity. What are the things that are contributing to your cognitive performance outside of IQ? And the whole point is until we have a sophistication of understanding, we're going to just think, oh, stupidity, because IQ is like hard to change. It's not very malleable, right? Then we think like we're destined to be like this. But I think what I found time and time again is like, if you're reliable, if you're a good team player, if you're charismatic, like, you know, I still remember reviewing applications for Mass General Hospital and Harvard Medical School, and like, you know, this person is super smart, but they're annoying to hang around with. Like, blew my mind when one of my attendings was like, I would not want to teach this. I would not want to teach this person.
Yes. This
Like-
is big in promotions too.
I was stunned to hear someone who I thought was supposed to be compassionate, but they're a brilliant psychiatrist, so they're like transparent with their language, right? I would not enjoy having this person learn because they seem to know it all and they're not like interested in taking advantage of the teaching that we have to offer. And giving your teacher a good experience, having them be excited, also brings out the best teaching naturally in them. And so I think we grossly overestimate intelligence. And you can absolutely be incredibly successful. You can be very valued. You can be incredibly vital. And there's a decent chance that you're not as stupid as you think you are.
Yeah, it sounds like health is a big issue for
Yeah.
this person. 14-mile bike ride on top of working full time.
Yeah.
You want to share the little stat sheet?
IQ low, reliability high, interpersonal high, discipline high, health medium to high. I don't know what this means.
You were
Oh, this-
saying IQ is a stat sheet.
Yeah. So, well, I was talking about a D&D character sheet, but fair enough.
Okay, use it. Okay.
So I think it's like, you know, what should you do? Like there's some amount of, sometimes like even cognitive rehab can be very helpful. Like if you have, you know, executive function impairments, if you've got undiagnosed ADHD, like another really, really, really common scenario is I'm stupid. No, you're not. You've got high IQ and ADHD. I'm really stupid. No, you're not. You've got a high IQ and a learning disability. Right? We've started to recognize that there are things that exist outside of IQ that affect your cognitive performance.
I will
And-
say it's really nice when somebody knows what they're not good at in the workplace. Like, I'm not a math person. Creative, strategy, organizational, management, those are my strong suits. Math has never been my strong suit. So I'm never going to be the one that's going to be like, well, the data, blah, blah, blah. And you don't want, I would way rather work with somebody who's really good at a few things and is open to improvement on stuff than somebody who thinks that I know everything, I'm the smartest person in the room.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we're about 40 minutes over for today. I think thank you all very much for coming. I think we've got you know, some stuff to take care of, so we're gonna, I think, call it for the day. Yeah, and before we go, I saw people were recommending Black Myth Wukong. I think maybe I'll get her to play it. So she's a big fan of Three Kingdoms. I tried to get her to play Three Kingdoms Total War.
Speaking of stat sheets, it's
Uh,
just too much.
you know, and someone's asking about David Goggins. So we try not to comment about people, right? So I think that generally speaking, people in the space are quite helpful in their own way. And so what we really try to do is talk to people instead of about them. But I think David Goggins clearly has been very inspiring and very helpful to many, 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 many people. And I think that's great because we need people who are inspiring and helpful and try to push people in the right direction. Yeah, I mean,
Hope this was helpful, guys. We're wanting you guys to be able to get the jobs that you want. And in many cases, the people that we work with end up quitting, doing their own thing. And now they're saying, well, how do I grow this thing? How do I offset my weaknesses? Things like that. So any career related stuff, check out the Discord, check out the Adulting Challenge. And if it's the right fit for you, check out career coaching.
yeah. And you know, let us know, y'all. So once again, like, this process is a little bit more formalized on the membership side where we have like monthly voting. But, you know, we're like, everyone's been asking, does Dr. K read chat? Yeah, like, we read chat. We pay attention to what gets posted on the subreddit. You know, like, and our awesome like mods, people like Crow and Panda and Tech Teller, they're keeping the pulse of like what's being discussed in Discord and stuff like that. Hey, this issue is coming up. So y'all's questions, y'all's participation, y'all's direction is incredibly important to us. We hopefully have a video about female bullying and aggression coming out soon, which once again was prompted by a post. So, you know, someone was like, hey, I'm a woman who's getting bullied by women. Like, has Dr. K ever talked about this? This is a huge issue.
It's so rough.
And it really is. I've seen that so much in finance, especially with like women and like toxic work environments where the toxicity is not always men. Like I've heard crazy things like, no, you are not allowed to have a kid until 35 because I had to wait. I'm your boss and you're going to wait too. Like literal case that I've had in psychotherapy where this person is like, I don't know how to deal with this. Like, you know, if I get pregnant, like my boss is so resentful because I got pregnant in my 20s and she didn't get to do that. I don't know how to deal with this. Like it's wild. So we're you know, we've got and so the stuff that y'all need our help with is what we want to help you with. So this person was like, what if I'm stupid? And let us know also if you guys like want more career oriented stuff. I think Kruti's like awesome at that, and we can do like our separate takes. Like here's, yeah, you're screwed, you should start looking for another job. Hold on a second. You know, so I think that those perspectives, because I look at things differently, right?
Yeah,
and I don't sometimes like just believe in yourself and everything will be okay. Work on yourself and everyone will recognize, understand your own cognitive bias, and then, you know, like tell your boss, have a conversation, talk, partnership. And sometimes like people, you know, there's just people fucking suck at work, like, and you do need to move on, and you gotta, you know, peace out and all that kind of good stuff. So we're happy to help with whatever y'all need. Okay. Yeah, so this is great. Like, so Tigor is saying, as a department head of 20 to 30, I've always had issues with women treating the women badly. Tried to resolve, but it seems to be an issue I've always had with women that I supervise. Yeah, it's like not a unique experience. And so hopefully this video will kind of give you all a little bit of like a playbook of what that style of aggression can look like, which by the way is not exclusive to women. So men will do this too. It's just more commonly, this is the way that female aggression manifests. So that's all coming out soon. Okay. Do you recommend doing crack before work to improve performance? Only if you're Rick James. For everyone else, stay away from cocaine. Probably Rick James should stay away too if he's still alive. I don't even know if he's alive
Not
or what.
medical advice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. AI fear. Yeah, so people were asking about climate change fear, AI fear. So speaking of research and stuff, for like 8-9 months, 1 year, I've been working on something around existential depression. It just hasn't come together yet. So like existential depression, the world is changing, like, so I'm working on it. And sometimes it just takes some, you know, sometimes everything needs to click in the right way before we can put something out. But you know, I probably, for every 2 or 3 lectures that see the light of day, we'll work on like 10.
Yeah.
So 20 to 30% of it like actually makes it out of the gate. And a lot of times, like we just need the right combo of stuff. Like we don't have enough research, or we don't really understand what's going on with people, or like we don't really have anything productive to say about it. So we work on all these issues, but that's perfect. Like this is exactly what we need from y'all. So thank you very much.
The AI thing, it'll be announced, I think, next week, but you're joining a board to help an AI company basically create child-friendly internet experiences. So how can they use AI for internet safety for children, basically starting to use iPads and computers for the first time. So that'll be announced next week. There's so much cool stuff you can do with AI, and a creator friend of ours actually moderated the AI panel at the Creator Summit at the White House a couple weeks ago. But the big concern I think I have around AI, just from like a healthy gamer perspective, is like, you know, we've put our life's work into building all of this information, and for AI to basically just take that and be like, I own all this information now, kind of sucks. So I don't know, there's a lot of IP concerns, I think, in AI.
Yeah.
But on the plus side, I can just be like, what would Dr. K say about this? And it would spit out a video script for you. If you want to use AI to write your videos.
No. That's I don't know if you guys were following that, like the incest of the, AI is becoming incestuous. So like I don't know if you guys saw this, but so AI based like images are starting to use AI images as their inputs. So AI does really well when it like takes human material and then turns it into AI generated stuff. But the moment that AI like uses AI generated material to generate AI generated material, it literally looks like inbreeding. Like the images just get worse. Like the more iterations of it you do, like the more like inbred they look. So it's wild. It's like I never thought that inbreeding would be applicable outside of biology, but apparently so. And on that note, have a good weekend. Oh, this has got clipped. Have a good weekend, everybody. And we will see y'all next week. So take care, everybody. If y'all are in the United States, have a happy Labor Day weekend. And if y'all are in the rest of the world, I hope you have a good weekend. And also, TI starts in a few days, so that'll be fun.
Is this the first TI you're not going to for a while?
No.
Are you going?
No. But for a while, I've only been to 2
or in
TIs.
Feels like you've gone to like every one since 2019.
Yeah, nope. I've been to
Nope.
2.
Okay. Well,
So-
you always go somewhere for TI, even if you don't go to TI.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Love you, babe.
Love you too. Love you, chat.
Adios, chat.
Bye.
Love you all too. Take care.